When times are tough, when we're in a recession, and when we've been put further behind the 8 ball by this Conservative government, $56 billion into deficit before there was any real crisis, that's not the time to give away a corporate tax cut when we already have the most competitive corporate tax rates in the G7. It doesn't make sense now. There might be a time down the road when the economy is booming again that we would look at it again as a means of attracting business. But it's not now, and it's not necessary.
Besides, the Liberal Party has other uses for the money that would have been forgiven by the government for those corporate income taxes.
Oh, yeah. No, when you look at, and people question where different parties' platform the money is going to come from, ours is pretty simple. If you take away the American-style super prisons and the corporate tax cuts, and you know, they pile onto each other, and the jets, you got to get rid of those jets, that is close to $50 billion, all told. And that's a drop in the bucket when it comes to the cost of our platform. So you know, ours is fully costed out, and that's one of the best things we bring to the table.
All parties are saying that, of course, aren't they? They're all costed out.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Adriana, what about corporate income tax cuts? Your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, our budget is not only costed out, it's the only one that was submitted to the Parliamentary Budget Office for review.
And what does that mean exactly?
Oh, well, it means that he reviewed it and said the numbers actually seem plausible.
Okay. Did he actually review it, though? I mean, how could he review it when Parliament isn't in session?
It was actually submitted before.
Oh, okay. And it was reviewed, and he said, oh, great stuff, or something like that?
I don't think that he says that. I think he says that the numbers are reasonable.
There seems to be some debate about whether or not it was sent and actually reviewed, or just sent.
Right. But anyway, getting back to corporate tax cuts, yes. I think we have to be very, very skeptical of a government that says that when we have a surplus, then we need to cut corporate taxes, and when we have a deficit, then we need to cut corporate taxes. When the economy is doing well, we need to cut corporate taxes, and when it's doing poorly, we need to cut corporate taxes. That should make us very suspicious of what they're doing. And,
okay.
And now is not the time.
I know you can dredge up an economist to agree with pretty well anything you say on these issues, but can you draw a line between cutting corporations' income tax and a job? I mean, is it a factor?
I don't believe that it's a factor. I don't believe that it's a factor. There's absolutely no evidence that cutting corporate taxes can actually create jobs. The problem with corporate taxes is that you're competitive internationally, so you do have to remain competitive internationally. But at this stage, we're more than competitive, so there's no reason.
Is it possible, Andrew Lang, that you could draw that line between corporate income tax cuts and a job back in the year 2000, when the Liberal government first brought in the corporate tax slide, when it was in fact very high? Did it make more of a difference then? You think?
It makes a long-term difference. It doesn't make the immediate difference that the Conservatives are pretending it makes. But to the point, we do know that it's a very vague science as to how many jobs will be created. Mm-hmm. Really, the point of corporate tax cuts are to attract corporations to your business and technology to your country. Mm-hmm. And when we already have the most competitive ones in our economic class, there's no reason to go further right now.
All right. What would you add to that, Marie? Do you think there's that direct connection between giving a tax break to corporations and jobs at the other end of it for the rest of us?
Well, I mean, I'm going to continue to be the oddball out here, and understand that there's, our party is about ethical government. We're not concerned about whether our party is winning. We want people to have a very understanding that all the issues that we're talking about right now are very far away, and it's distracting us from immediate, absolute action, positive change for the environment and for people.
All right. Let's hear from Jacob on the line. Jacob. No, let's get Jacob up. There's Jacob. Jacob, do you have a question for the candidate?
I do.
Go ahead, please.
Now, considering in the environment where we have things like euthanasia, terminative eugenics, would a national inquiry, a real open inquiry to the citizens of Canada about healthcare, be something that you would like to make some comments about, sort of where doctors and nurses and other practitioners and patients who have really been victims or are trying to help, our society through medical efforts, can we have a way that they can all speak freely without repercussion?
All right, who'd like to handle it? Let me start with you, Marie.
Okay, I'm trying to get the clarification of the question.
Okay.
Of what he was asking.
Jacob, could you simplify the question a bit,
Very
please?
simply, an open inquiry about our medical system, where all the people who have been affected by it can speak openly, to an open governing inquiry of some sort that can be televised. And
so people who have somehow been victimized by the healthcare system, is that what you're talking about?
Or involved in the healthcare system and no, knowledge about it.
Well, haven't we had a lot of healthcare inquiries over the years, though, Jacob?
I've never seen one where people, the actual citizens of the society, can line up and say what has happened in their lives.
A grassroots inquiry, I think, is what... Let me start with Andrew Lang on that.
Well, there were two done, as you know, the Romano report and the Kirby report, both done by the Liberals.
And as I recall, ordinary people were allowed to
come and talk, for sure.
Is there any point in having one now?
There's always a point in having another. It's a question of constant renewal, but you can't have one every year. So when it's time to renew, you got to keep going. You got to keep asking. You got to keep adjusting the health system, because it changes. The people change and the needs change. So I'm not opposed to having a new one, but
there would be no compelling reason to have one tomorrow, for example. Would you agree with that?
I certainly. This is actually the first time I've ever heard anybody mention that. So I don't think that there's a huge public demand for this, but I certainly have no problem with having one. Like you just said.
Okay, I have some questions here. From Hinko for the Green Party candidate, but I'll ask the questions of all the candidates. And the first question here is, what is the Green Party position on nuclear energy?
Oh, our position federally on nuclear energy is that we would remove the subsidies to the nuclear industry. And there's...
What about nuclear energy itself, I think, is really what the question is driving at.
We would really want to, what we want to do is invest in a fully renewable energy grid. And so the first step to that would be to actually do the research to figure out how that works. And that kind of work has been done in England. It's been done in Germany. It's been done in parts of the United States. But it has never been done in any part of Canada. And we'd really like
I still don't hear your position on nuclear energy. I mean, for example, half of the power generated in Ontario comes from nuclear energy.
Right.
Are you sort of, I think Hinko is asking, are you for it or against it? Or do you tolerate it? Or what kind of descriptive phrases can you give us on
I guess we hope that it gets phased out as we bring in a fully renewable system.
Okay, all right. Andrew Lang, policy on nuclear energy? How do you feel about it?
The only issue I have with nuclear is the gray areas and the question marks around what we do with the waste. And we still need to do a lot more to study what we can do to make sure the disposal of that is safe. And we think it is, but I still think we need to work, especially with what's going on in Japan and the anniversary of Chernobyl. You need to really be concerned about nuclear and make sure that it is the safest thing. And the Conservatives actually kind of undermined the safety of our nuclear industry in Canada. And we would make sure that we go back and make sure that nuclear is the safest thing possible.
Marie Smith, do you have a position on nuclear energy?
Crawford?
Or I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I had a Marie Smith, did I not? The other day? I'm not sure. Marie Crawford, go ahead, please.
Nuclear energy
Yes, we did. Dave's telling me we did have a Marie Smith. All right, go ahead.
It's short-term gain for long-term pain, for sure. Nuclear energy is just buying a disaster later on, not the main reason being how to dispose of waste. Clearly, our position would be to move as immediately as possible to renewable energy. We can fly people into outer space. I'm sure we can figure out a way to have a renewable energy system today.
All right. Here's John on the line with a question. John, what's your question for the candidates?
I admire you all for stepping up and running. First of all, congratulations. Good luck to all of you. You show that you care, as all the candidates from all the ridings who've been on your show have shown that they care, or they wouldn't be running at all.
Indeed.
But you know, once they get into power, a certain party, the accountability seems to drop somewhat when they see the power they have in front of them. And we do get things called scandals. And there's no party that has been absolved from problems in the past, whether it's been provincially or federally. It's up to good leadership to step on it fast and to deal with it so that the public knows that, yes, I demand credibility from the people I put in special posts of power. And if they don't, they will be dealt with very quickly.
Okay,
to show
John.
Canadians they will not be tolerated.
Is there a question in there?
The biggest problem that I see is taxation, and my question to the people here is, we are taxed on everything we buy. We are taxed on our income. If you want to help out the poor and the seniors who are below poverty standards according to where they are, it's about time that the government stood up and showed they cared by absolving these certain people and families that lived below a certain standard of personal income taxes. If you're going to be hitting them with taxes on everything they buy, then stop taxing their personal income.
All right, all right, John, make that into a question that the candidates can handle,
Are they willing to put a bill forward that will make it possible and feasible and workable so that they show they care for seniors that are below poverty line, barely existing anymore, have to sell their homes because they can't afford to keep them because of the taxation, even on personal income where they only get close to $1,000 a month, which is shameful for the government to tax them? Is it fair to poverty people who have families to be taxed when they're running to food banks?
Yeah, okay, John, we get the question. I think John has a future in Parliament Hill, but I think we understand fully his question and his situation. Adriana, let me have you address it first.
Well, the Green Party does want to introduce, and it's fully costed, $24 billion in income and payroll taxes, and the first $20,000 of personal income will be tax-free, and that's all financed.
I think that would cover some of John's concern, what he's talking about.
That would be financed by a new tax on pollution, primarily carbon. And this is in addition to the carbon tax rebates that families would get. There's also $1 billion in tax cuts for below poverty incomes and other goodies, and CPP for seniors enhanced. So we are very concerned about what he's saying, and I think we address it very, very well.
Andrew Lang, how would you answer John's question?
Well, firstly, there's some clarification. People below the poverty line actually pay almost no income tax, so it's that's not the type of tax that's hurting them. It's other forms of tax.
No, but if they don't have money, they don't have money, and
exactly.
can still
live.
But
I'm just saying that
of course.
they're not going to get hurt by that tax. But one of his points was on home tax, and in our riding especially, we have people that have lived in their home for 60 years, and their home, for no fault of theirs, they bought it at $30,000, and now it's gone up appreciably. And they can't afford to live there. And some people say, well, then they should just sell it and leave. Well, that's not fair. They have the right to continue to live in their home. So we do need to work with the city and work with the province to find solutions to allow people to live with dignity in the home that they've had for a lot of their life.
All right. Marie Crawford, how would you answer some of John's issues that he brought up in his question?
Our party very much supports what we call a steady state economy, which is where everybody has the right to live with the resources that they need to be comfortable. It means, people who have the greatest wealth can give to those that have less, and really addressing a lot of root problems about why people have gotten into the situations that they are having a hard time, they are struggling. People who are struggling the most actually have access to the worst food. It's appalling, that you can buy a box of Kraft dinner for $3 and to feed your children, whereas people who are well off, they're the ones that are eating organically, and there's a huge flaw in how we care about all of the people who live in Canada today.
Okay, here's Frank on the line with a question. Frank, what is the question you have for the candidates here? Go ahead, Frank. Frank, are you there?
I'd like to ask you about the politician. It's been so many years, one cooks another. They've been stealing money, and nobody does anything about it. I think we need a change. NDP is the right party for this country.
All right, that's not a question. That's just you making a pitch. Have you got a question for these candidates?
Yeah, the question I was asking, I've been working in this country for 50 years, making my ass on construction, and my pension is so low, I can't even pay the rent.
Yeah. So you want to hear some ideas and strategies and undertakings about pensions, right? All right, Frank. Frank, thank you very much. Marie Crawford, let me start with you.
Well, I mean, it's one of the flaws of our country now, not taking care of people who are, going to be near the ends of their lives and have lived and loved and had families and lives that now they're looking at the potential of not being able to cash in and use their pensions anymore. It's horrifying that that's allowed to happen, that that there's a lot of denial about that.
Frank already knows that. What could your party do about that?
Well, again, I'm picking it up on a grand scale. We would make sure that, pensions that are put into are respectfully given out to those who need it. Our party bridges all and, takes care of people who are struggling.
Andrew Lang, what